So I was fortunate, man, that I was getting killed every day to the point where I was finally able to take him down. And I grew a lot, man, because I failed over and over and over and over and over against this dude. But I just kept getting up and kept going after it to the point where I was able to take him down. I was able to win a varsity spot as a freshman.
What's up, people? Welcome to the Dear Young Athlete podcast, where we talk to athletes and coaches about their journeys and what advice they would give to a younger version of themselves. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson. You can call me JT. If you want to hear my story and why I do this podcast, that will be in episode number 1. But enough about me, because today I have a very special guest. This man joining me today, he is a husband, he is a father, he is a pastor, an educator, he is a former collegiate wrestler, he is a varsity softball coach, a jiu-jitsu fighter. Above all that, he's a man of God. He is my friend and someone I've known and looked up to for the past 5 years. And I know what he shares today will bless anyone that will listen. Without further ado, Brandon Porter. B. Porter.
Oh man.
How you feeling?
Good, man. You caught me a wrestler.
That's what I say with my son. I say, you want to wrestle? And then he understands. Man, thank you for being here. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. I'm glad to be here.
So we'll jump right in. You know, you've been a college wrestler. You're a coach now. But where did it all start for you? How did you fall in love with playing sports?
Yeah, just growing up, man. Just growing up in rougher neighborhoods. Just as kids, kids like to run around and play anyway. But I just remember we moved around a lot, and that was a way where I was able to get connected with people is through sports. And I know my father, he played football when he was younger, and so I wanted to be like my dad. So I wanted to try to do stuff that I heard him talk about when we were together. I heard other people talk about porter tray is what they call it. I was like, porter, he run you right over, So man, I wanted to be a porter tray, so that's how I got into it, man. Sports.
That's good. That's good. A lot of people have, a family member or someone they look up to that kind of began their journey. So at what point did it become like you were serious about sports, and what were kind of your sports that you began to focus on?
Yeah, I think, man, I just remember always wanting to play in like little leagues and stuff like that. Never really could. Mom was either scared or we just didn't have the money to do the league. And so I couldn't really get serious about it then, but I just remember when I went to go live with my father, and that was 8th grade. Was it in 8th grade? I went to go live with my father, and I joined the football team, and I was trash, man. I was sorry, because I couldn't play any sports. I never played them before, like organized sports. So I just didn't know what to do and how to do it. But I enjoyed being out there, having fun and learning, man. And it wasn't until I remember I was tight end. I was little. They just put me in tight end for whatever, just threw me out there. But it wasn't until the last week where I started learning. Bam, fire off the ball, boom, boom, boom. And I remember my coaches being like, what's going on? What happened to this dude? But it was the last week of football, so I didn't do nothing else, that was it, And then that year, that spring, following that spring, I joined the track team and found out that I was fast. I found out that I could run, I could beat people, and I started getting medals and stuff. And after that, man, I was like, oh yeah, I'm in it,
Sports are a place where you can begin to build confidence, you can build community, and you can build and identity. And that can go too far,
Yeah.
right? But it can also be a good thing to establish
Yeah.
kind of who you are and gain that confidence. So you go into high school, what are you doing?
Yeah. So that eighth grade year, ended up going back living with my mom, and she was kind of hesitant, but I was like, no. I had a stepfather at the time. He was like, no, he playing football, So I went out and played football, and this is going back to Colorado. So I was in Georgia when I first started playing football, and although I felt like I was not good, and but I had learned a lot. So that when I went back to Colorado Springs, I was like killing these dudes out here in Colorado. It was a testament to like just the level of football and the difference. But I had a lot of fun that freshman year, man. I played freshman squad, then I played JV squad, and then I dressed out for the varsity games, but I wasn't a varsity player. And then so I did that freshman year. Freshman year, I also tried out for basketball. Yes, basketball, it doesn't matter where you at. If you're not good, you're not good. You're not good, you're not good. It kind of moved me off, man. But I remember training, trying to get better and get my lungs right. And I remember going upstairs with the wrestlers. And I remember Frankie was a football player. And he was like, Porter, man, like you should wrestle. I was like, no, I'm just up here to get better for basketball. I need to get my lungs right, And I remember he tried to like take me down. I like threw my legs back and kind of pushed him off. He was like, that's a sprawl, man. That's a real wrestling move. You need to wrestle. I was like, nah, man, I'm good, man. I left there, got cut on the basketball team. And then I didn't do nothing that winter. And then when spring came around, I ran track again.
Mm. At my high school, the wrestling coaches would like wait for those basketball cuts. They knew like all the failed basketball players is our team. Like, and that's kind of the beauty of like football and even wrestling. You can kind of join later, and if you can run and catch and you're athletic.
Yeah.
But basketball is a little more technical
Yeah.
and harder to maybe join later, and then you make the team.
Yeah.
So football, track, and then wrestling.
Yeah, well, football, track, freshman year, sophomore year, it was the same thing. Football, track, and then it was junior year. After football season, I had one of my football coaches, and he said, "Porter, man, you're an athlete, man. I'm a football field. You need to come out and wrestle." I was like, "Nah, I'm not doing that, man. I was too cool at that time. I'm not doing that, sweaty dudes grabbing on each other. I'm not doing that." So I told him. And then he challenged me. He said, "Oh, my bad. I totally forgot." I said, "What?" He said, "Wrestling is a man's sport. I don't know why I asked you. My bad." And I was like, I'm fragile in my identity. And, I was like, "What? I'm a man. I'll show you, man. Give me your best guy. And I'll show him a man." And so he said, "Okay, come on out." Yeah. This day, I was like, all right. I just fell for the trap, man. So I went out, man, to the wrestling mat and practice. He's like, "All right, Travion, come on over here." He told Travion to come over. I said, "Travion? Coach, you giving me Travion? I know Travion. I play football against Travion. I run Travion over. I outrun Travion. I catch over Travion. I'm dominant over Travion in football." So I'm like, okay, cool. Here we go. And man, we start wrestling. Travion grabbed a hold of me. And I know that I'm stronger because I bench him. I bench more. I squat more, everything. And Travion, man, he just mopped the floor with me. And so here I am looking at this dude who I feel like is inferior to me. And he is dominating me. I can't do nothing about it. I can't do nothing about what he's doing to me. So, I finished out that practice. And I was like, no, Travion can't. No, there's no way Travion beating me. So I stuck it out that season. Because I wanted to beat Travion. And I wasn't going to change nothing I was doing until I beat him.
What I love about what you said, I mean, I know you wrestled in college and we'll get there, but so often there's a coach or a leader that sees something in you that you don't even see in yourself. And on the episodes I've recorded, that's been a theme.
Yeah.
And it takes someone calling something out of you that's in you. And so cool now you get to do that
Yeah.
as a coach. Which I know you'll talk about more later.
Yeah.
So you're playing football, you start wrestling, doing track. At what point do you start thinking about college?
Yeah. I didn't even really start. So, I started my junior year. So my whole goal of junior year was just to beat Travion. I wasn't thinking about anything else. It was to beat Travion. And so that summer, I went to some summer camps. That spring before, I'm sorry, so spring wrestling in the winter. In the spring, I went to some other schools and they were doing like spring wrestling. And then I went to summer camp that year. So coming back, my whole goal as a senior was to beat Trey. And so I didn't start thinking about that until even, man, it was like around the start of wrestling season. And it was a teacher, Miss Robinson. And she said, hey, you need to be, I'm sorry, it was Miss Thompson. Matter of fact, now I think about it, it was Miss Thompson. And she said, you need to be thinking about school. Where are you going to school? And I was like, I don't know. I'll go somewhere. She's like, no. You're a senior. You need to be thinking about this. And she went to Maryland. And so she started trying to give me all these schools and we were signing up. But I was like, my GPA is not, what's up? She said, well, you're a wrestler. You play football. How about that? And she said, would you want to wrestle in college? I said, I mean, that would be fun. I'm having a lot of fun right now doing this. And so, she had me find a whole bunch of schools and just like write them and stuff. And so with the process, we started going down that process and I had to start recording myself wrestling and then sending out tapes. Nobody was looking at me. One, because I'm a wrestler from Georgia. It's just like people from Georgia looking for football players in Colorado. Like earlier, like I was saying. It's just hard. And number two, I hadn't been wrestling that long, so here I am, just popping up junior year in wrestling. But what they didn't know is that I was 100% totally committed, and I was not about to stop wrestling. I wasn't going to give up on it. And so I started writing my letters and sending my stuff out. And then I finally got a call back. I got a letter back from a coach in Iowa. I got a couple actually after a while, and I started feeling really good. Like, man, like, okay, I like this. All right, people want me. Okay.
I think some young people I've seen, they expect college, whether even just academic or even athletics, that is just gonna fall in their lap, or like it's just magically, yeah, you graduate high school and then go to college. It doesn't happen that way, obviously. And even your story of you believing in yourself enough to email a coach, to send out film, and I'm sure that took lots of time. And it's one thing today, there's a lot of talk like believe in yourself, but true belief in yourself is accompanied by you taking action to get there. And anyone who hears this, I hope you could be inspired by that to not just sit around and wait for college or a job or any of that. You got to go and chase it. And if you're not willing to put yourself out there, then maybe you don't actually believe in yourself, or why would you expect it to happen? So I love that you shared that.
Well, I think the thing is, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? If you put yourself out there, they'll tell you no, and you just move on and you go to the next one. You move on, you go to the next one. You move on, you go to, and that happened a lot, man. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I was going for D1 schools. I'm not a D1 athlete, but what happened was, as I started realizing, okay, I'm not getting anything back here. Let me go to D2, right? Get a few back, but not what I'm looking for. I go to D3, NAIA, and I start sending them out to everybody, And one thing I remember telling them, and I was writing them in these letters, I told them, I am a diamond in the rough. If you take a chance, you will not be sorry. And I
Mm.
believed it about myself. I believed that I was a diamond in the rough. I just happened to start wrestling late, but I knew that my work ethic and my drive is the thing that's going to separate me from everybody. And it was ultimately the thing that separated me.
Mm.
My father told me, man, when I was young, I remember this. It's that 8th grade year when I started playing football. He said, son, come here. We're outside, we're playing football. He said, listen, some people are born athletes and they make everything look easy. They join something and they just get it done. He said, and other people are not born athletes and they have to work. They have to work extra hard and more hard. And they have to work harder than everybody else. He said, son, you got to work hard. You got to work hard.
Man, that's a nice way to say, son,
Yeah.
you're not a natural.
You're not a natural, son. You got to work hard. And I appreciate that talk because I still remember it, man. And it separated me.
Yeah. But I mean, you probably know people, and I know people that they were super talented naturally
Mhm.
and never developed a work ethic and maybe didn't go anywhere near their potential because they didn't have to.
Right.
So don't be a victim of your own talent.
Right.
If you are talented, man, if you don't get that work ethic, that'll only take you so far.
Mhm.
So what college
Yeah, I went
says yes?
Yeah, so a couple of them, Lakeland University, Wisconsin, Dakota Wesleyan University. There were some other ones, but the big one the one that I chose was Waldorf, which is Waldorf University now, but it was Waldorf College back then. So a little school in Iowa, man, a little school in Iowa, but that was enough for me because I wanted to wrestle. I wanted to wrestle.
I feel like I skipped. So senior year, any accolades in the wrestling?
Yeah, so my senior year, which was my second season of wrestling, I won 46 matches. I lost 9 of those matches. And of the 9 that I lost were, I think most of them were state placers, state champions, that type of thing. I was the region champ, the division champ, and I placed 5th in the state. So that's my second year wrestling. Second year.
That's crazy.
Son, some people gonna have to work.
So you get to college. Take us through a little bit, man. College career and what that was like. Relive the glory days.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I think so. I mean, I just really worked, and I was fortunate enough that my freshman year that my practice partner was a national champion. So I got beat down every single day. But as long as I kept getting up, I was getting better. As long as I kept getting up and kept going at him, I was better. And I remember my coach saying, the first person, his name was Spank, the first person to take Spank down, I am going to give you a Subway sandwich and a Gatorade or something like that. So I was on the hunt. I was trying to take Spank down. And I remember his name was Garcia. He was a senior that year. Garcia took Spank down. And he got up, he was like, yeah, woo, yeah. And the Spank was on the ground. He was like, and he smacked the mat. Boom. And he got up. The match was still going. He got up, and I have never seen somebody get demolished in such a short amount of time as I saw Spank destroy Garcia. I mean, he took him down, let him up, picked him up, threw him back down. And I was like, oh, you had to turn away, man. I was like, oh no, this is a bloody beatdown, But I still was on the hunt. And so when I finally took Spank down, I did not celebrate. I didn't even look him in the eye. I just act like nothing happened. And I got up and started trying to wrestle again. You know what I mean? But he still wasn't happy with it. So he started kicking my butt again. But he didn't kill me like he killed Garcia, but so I was fortunate, man, that I was getting killed every day to the point where I was finally able to take him down. And I grew a lot, man, because I failed over and over and over and over and over against this dude. But I just kept getting up and kept going after it to the point where I was able to take them down. I was able to win a varsity spot as a freshman. And this is my third time. This is my third season. It's my third season as a wrestler, and here I am, a varsity wrestler on a college team.
I want people to hear that you've said you kept getting beat down, but if you kept getting up, you kept getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And that you were fortunate to fail continuously.
Yeah.
And I feel like when people fail, often it's an opportunity to quit. Or when you get knocked down, that's an opportunity to stay down and to give up. That could be in sports, that could be pursuing a goal or a dream that you have, or it could even be with your family or with your life, man. People give up and they quit.
Yeah.
And man, what you said about if I get up one more time, then I know I'm going to get stronger. I know I'm going to get better.
Yeah.
And so, man, that could even be the word of the day, man. Just keep getting up one more time.
Yeah.
You don't know what's around the corner.
Right.
So you were in a varsity spot. Take us through the career a little bit.
I'll just take you all the way to the end of the career. And it doesn't have, unfortunately, it doesn't have a great, as great of an ending as it has the beginning. So as I'm growing, I'm learning, I'm winning matches. I don't necessarily remember. I stopped counting in college how many times I won, because what I started to do was like just go against myself. I started to compete against myself. I started to see if my takedowns are better. If my escapes are better. And so I kind of stopped counting. But along the way, I won some regional championships. I won some tournaments. The first tournament that I wrestled in college, I won. So I would win tournaments and I win some regional championships. I remember we went down to Dubuque and I wrestled a national champion in the semifinals, and I beat him. I got to the finals and I got destroyed. I got crushed by a dude who I could have beaten. And then I started to notice that happen. I would get to a place where I would if I'm in the sim, you did not want to wrestle me in the semifinals. If you wrestled me in the semifinals, it was over. No one was beating me in the semifinals. It was when I got to the finals that you could run right over me. And I started to notice that I would get beat very bad in the finals. And then sometimes it would work out, sometimes it wouldn't. So one guy, I remember getting beat one match. It was just a regular match, but then we got to the the districts or the regional. It was the one right before you go to nationals, whatever the case. And I ended up getting to the finals with him, but I didn't crumble that time because I had a chip on my shoulder, because he beat me that one time before, and I wasn't about to let it happen again. And so I ended up beating him. So I figured there was something going on that I just couldn't really put my finger on. I could win, I could beat the best wrestlers in a situation where nothing was really on the line, but it was harder when I got to a national stage. And so, I did well in many different areas. I won championships. I was ranked top 5 in the nation. By the time I became a junior, I was ranked top 5 in the nation. And it was a lot of fun, man. A lot of interviews, a lot of newspaper articles, all that kind of stuff that comes with it. But my junior year, I got to the national championship, and I wrestled well. I lost in one round to the guy who goes on to be the national champion. It was a close match. It was a hard match. Then I had to wrestle back. I got to the round right before you get to the All-American round, and I got to that round, and I beat another All-American to get to the next round. And now I'm in this final. I'm in this round, and if I win, I'm an All-American, right? And I'm going against another one, and I crumble. and I get beat.
Mm.
And that was my last wrestling match.
Mm.
I actually didn't even go back my senior year. So what I believed in the beginning about getting up one more time, I didn't believe in the end. And to this day, I don't know my potential. I don't know what could have happened if I would have just kept going back. And I remember the conversation I had with my coach one time. I told him, and I couldn't quite word it because I didn't know what category it fit under. I said, Coach, I'm scared to be the best.
Mm.
I'm scared to be the best. And that's the best way I could put it.
Mm.
And he kind of blew me off as arrogant, whatever. And he didn't really address that ever. And that was it. This was before I got to my last match. And then he came to me at the end. He was like, just come back. I guarantee you're an All-American next year, maybe a national champion. And I believe he was right. I believe if I would have come back the next year, continued training like I started, then I would have been a national champion. But we'll never know.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. And that's part of the reason why I coach the way that I coach now, because I want people to get out of their heads. What I started to realize was it wasn't that I was afraid to be the best. It was I was afraid of not being the best. I was afraid of getting to the finals and people saying, oh, he's not supposed to be there. Why is that guy in there? Why is he in the finals? And then what would happen is it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I would get there and I would think, but you're not supposed to be here. And people would just beat me because I took my focus from competing with myself and put it on what do people think about me? What do these coaches expect of me? What is this my opponent? How is he looking at me as? Does he think I'm not supposed to be here? I've only been wrestling for so long. So as I got better at wrestling, my physical ability increased like crazy, but mental ability, my thinking, it didn't grow, and it cost me. It cost me.
Say that you said you took your focus off competing with you and you began to think about what other people think of you. And if that is not true in life, we can lose so much. You're talking about how you lost maybe an opportunity and you don't know what your potential could have been. When we compare ourselves to others, we can lose our joy and our contentment and start thinking about, oh, what do they think about me? How do I add up with so and so? And then meanwhile, you lose at life that's right in front of you because you're worried about comparing yourself. And man, to hear, you know, to hear you reflect on that through a difficult process and maybe some regret. Hopefully people can hear that and learn from it so that they don't make that same mistake.
I think the biggest thing, and I'm not going to go and blame him because it was just my makeup, right? I could have chose to stay, but that junior year, actually I got a new coach. So I had the same coach freshman and sophomore year, and all those things that I was doing and accomplishing, and he was helping me to see myself in a different light. And then I got a coach junior year who was most concerned about winning. That's what he was concerned about. Winning. It's about winning, and that's what I wanted to do. But he didn't help me to understand who I was competing against in order to win. If I learned to compete against myself and keep it there, if I put in the reps that I was supposed to do in order for myself to beat myself, if I could beat myself today, if I could beat the guy I am today tomorrow, right? If I could beat the guy today that I was yesterday, if I could beat him, then I'm going to get better than my competition. But I focused on looking at everybody else and winning for this coach and doing all those types of things that I cracked under the pressure of everybody else's expectation for me. And I found some sort of excuse for me not to wrestle anymore. And it was a legitimate excuse, but man, it was so legitimate then. You know, it
Yeah.
became the most legitimate thing I've ever done in my entire life because I was convinced that I shouldn't be doing this anymore. Right. And so that's where I think the coach is so important. It's this thing that you said earlier about seeing something in somebody that they didn't see in themselves, even the negative things, right?
Mm.
I needed somebody to see that in me. Porter, you're cracking under pressure. Where are you getting this pressure from? Why do you have so much pressure on you? Let's stop that. The only person that you're competing with is you. You're taking your reps and you're putting them up against his reps, right? And you're seeing what happens after the clash. But really, it is you're putting more reps in for yourself. You got to focus on how many takedowns have you done? How many single legs? How many double legs? How many escapes have you done? How many tilts? How many turns? Like that's the thing that I need to be focusing on, and that's the thing that every athlete needs to be focusing on.
Mm.
Focus on competing with yourself. If you get 1% better today than you were yesterday, you continue to get better.
Mm. Amen. Amen. So transition into coaching.
Yeah.
How and why? And we might piggyback on that more later, but how'd you get in coaching?
Yeah, I just got into coaching for the love of wrestling, man. So I started a kids wrestling club over on the north side, and I was coaching there for 5 years before I had a kid, and started to flip a house. I just couldn't do it all, but I was coaching there, man. And it was a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it, and it was just really about just continuing with that passion. And then I had the opportunity to teach kids wrestling and teach them the things that I learned in wrestling. And so God was gracious with me. He gave me lots of opportunities, just almost like a freeway to do all those types of things. And he just kind of poured in all the resources that I need to make this thing go. And so it was a lot of fun to be able to teach these boys wrestling and give them something different and help them to use their abilities and teach them about hard work and what gifts you can get out of that.
Mm. The last thing I would say in your athletic journey is when you got cut from that basketball team, that probably hurt and you were probably sad and disappointed. But look what that led you into. And it may be cliche, but to say like, man, where one door closes, if you keep fighting and keep, pursuing, a different door will open.
Yeah.
And then to see like, man, that pain, that disappointment that you felt getting cut in basketball probably didn't even come close to comparing your experience as a wrestler.
Right.
That had you made that team, you may never have experienced that. So you mentioned God being gracious to you and leading you and guiding you. And a lot of people now know you as Pastor Brandon, but you weren't always Pastor Brandon. So talk to us about your faith journey and the evolution that's happened in your life.
Yeah, man. I kind of grew up when I was living with my mother. We kind of would go to church. Christmas, Easter, a couple of times throughout the year. Um, we would say we were Christians, but we wouldn't necessarily live like a Christian. There wasn't anything that was definitive about us when it came to being a Christian. So I remember moving back with my father when I was in the 8th grade, and he wasn't a believer before that. And he was actually kind of mean, really mean before. And I came back my 8th grade year, and he was a Christian. He was different, He still had some stuff he had to work on, but he was a different man. It was really. It was interesting to me, I could just tell there was a difference. And so, I lived with him and went back home with my mom and started getting into trouble, started getting into gang stuff, trying to go the route that every other man in my life, my uncles that had all gone down and trying to, it was like I was looking for that, I was searching for that. I want to be a Crip, I want to be out here with y'all, And my mom was like, I remember one time She heard I was out in another place, you know, trying to fight with some Bloods, you know. And she was like, no, 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 no. This was the last time, you know. And so she bought me a bus ticket and was like, you out of here. You going to Georgia, you know. At that time I was, you know, selling, and there was something in me that didn't want to eventually didn't want to disobey her. Like it was something in me that was like, you know, I could have easily said, I'm not going nowhere. I'm not going to this bus stop. I'm not packing up nothing. I'm not doing none of that. I could have easily done that, but for whatever reason, there was something in me I felt like just pulling me, saying like, you know, you need to go. I think it was maybe it was like I get to be with my father, you know, maybe just going after the thing I was desiring. You know, I was like, I don't know what it was, but it was something that, you know, that was pulling me, saying I need to go. I need to go. And so I did. I went to Georgia, and he was there as a Christian. This is by the time I summer of my ninth grade year. Uh, he was a Christian. He lived differently, uh, and so you know, I think there was something about me wanting to be my father's son. You know, I wanted to be my father's son when I was there, and so
And you said that may even have been what you were looking for,
right,
going to the streets and going to try and find some identity in that.
yeah,
But maybe deep down you were actually just looking for, you know, being loved and accepted
yeah,
by your father.
yeah, yeah. I think that had to be it, man. You know, so going back there and with my father, and you know, he had us going to church and doing all kind of stuff, and he's trying to turn us to church boys, but it was hard because it was hard to do because I just it just wasn't who I was, you know. Uh, but you know, I tried to be obedient, and what I started to learn was that if I just do everything they tell me to do, they stay off my back, you know. So I wanted to be there with my father, but at the same time, I didn't want to give up the stuff that I had learned, you know. So I went out there and I was doing some of the same stuff, you know, selling drugs, you know, um, trying to get with the wrong people, uh, not necessarily getting into gang life in Georgia because I wasn't really familiar with what they had going on out there, you know. And so I wasn't really interested in cliques on the south side or the east side or whatever. But I just had my own little crew, my own little whatever. And so that's just kind of how I lived my life. But it was like a double life. So, you know, I was at home, I did what I was supposed to do, I did my chores. That way I could stay out late or I can go do whatever and nobody would ever ask me any questions. When I was out, I was out. You know, I was doing my thing. So yeah, that's kind of how my whole how it was until I graduated high school. And then I graduated high school, went to college, you know, finally got that letter back. This is when I started getting into wrestling. And I can say that when I got into wrestling, that was the thing that made me step back from the drugs. That was the thing that made me step back from everything else because I still kind of lived a double life, but at least I wasn't in the streets anymore, and I wasn't doing stuff that's going to get me sent to jail. Because wrestling, once I started doing it my junior year, it was like I like this. I don't want to risk this, you know. And so I stepped back to do that stuff. But I went to college, man. And when I went to college, it was one of the most interesting things because I went there and I was like, yo, this is fun. I don't have nobody to please. You know, I can do whatever I want to do. So I started, you know, doing, you know, going to the parties and, you know, staying out with girls and doing all that kind of stuff. And it just wasn't what I had been taught. And so it's funny. So then I started to switch where I was like, okay, Brandon, you say that you're a Christian, but are you really a Christian? Because I was still claiming to be a Christian. And I remember having this conversation with myself. I literally sat down with myself and I said, okay, you party on Friday nights, you party on Saturday nights, you're just wild, you're going crazy, you're doing all the things that you know you're not supposed to do. You say you want to be a national champion, right? This is not lining up. Same thing again. You say you do all these things and you say that you're a Christian. This is not lining up. So I was like looking for this identity, like, who are you? And so I had a conversation with myself and I said, okay, Brandon, are you a Christian? And I started thinking about it. And I said, well, I do believe in Jesus. I do believe there's a God. I don't live like the Christians I know live. And I don't actually want to live like that.
Mm.
So no, I'm not a Christian. Are you sure you're not a Christian, Brandon? Yes, I'm sure I'm not a Christian. Boom. Okay, you're not a Christian. Go and feel free. Go sit. And that's what I did. I went and I felt free. I didn't feel any burden. I didn't feel anything, any problem with that. You know,
Mm.
I felt free. And when people ask me, "Are you a Christian?" I was saying, "No, I'm not a Christian." And it wasn't until I came back that summer from my freshman year in college to I came home and I felt very bad because I had a girlfriend back home in Georgia. I was in college and I cheated on her when I was in college. And I felt really bad about that. Why did I all of a sudden start feeling bad about that? Maybe it's because I was back in a Christian household. Maybe my identity felt like I needed to be back doing Christian stuff, whatever it was. But when that conviction came on me, I was like, so I went to go talk to my stepmom and I said, hey, I'm not feeling like, like I love this girl anymore. And I feel bad about it. And she says, oh, that's because you went to school and you were doing things you weren't supposed to do. And I was like, no, 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 no. But she started to tell me the gospel. She started telling me about Jesus, though. She just transitioned. She said, okay. She said, Brandon, no, son, you're ungrateful and you're greedy. And she started telling me all these things about my character. And she says, God has given you so much and you don't thank him, you don't honor him, you don't do anything. There's nothing about you that gives glory to God for what he has done for you. She's like, don't you remember? You used to live in a household where you didn't know where your next meal was coming from. Don't you remember that? I started thinking about that. And she's like, you owe God. You owe him everything. And I was like, owe him everything. He said, and she goes on, he sent his son to die for you because you got to stand before God. And if you don't know his son, you're going to be punished. I was like, and I said, okay, thank you. And I was hoping for some different kind of advice when I went in there. I wanted some girl advice, but I came out with that. And so I came back in my room and I started thinking about that. And I was like, man, that's heavy. Like, I'm in debt. It felt like, I'm not lying to you. And I started to think about it. It felt like I owed the mob $1 million. And all I had in my pocket was lit. Right? I was like, yo, I am in trouble.
Yeah.
And I started to kind of get that feeling of like, I'm in trouble, man. I got to do something about this. And so I went to my knees, man, and I prayed. I said, God, I don't fully understand all of this, but I know that I believe that you're real. And I said, if you would just save me, if you would just, make me a different person, you would change me, I will live for you. I will live for you if you save my soul. And I promise you, man, when I got up, it felt like, and people say this like a cliche, but it was really a real feeling. It felt like a weight was just lifted off me. I felt free, the same freedom that I felt the first time when I was like, I can go off and do whatever I want to do. Right. But it was different this time. It wasn't about myself. I felt like I was free to like truly like be in service to the Lord. I was free to really love God without trying to earn it.
I'm reminded of the scripture that says, it's better if you're hot or cold and not lukewarm.
Yeah.
And when I think about like you had this lukewarm faith, and it was like God couldn't really work with that because it's like you think you're a Christian, a believer, but you don't live like it. Right. But when you were cold and you said, no, I'm not that, then like God was able to work with you. And what I like is that you sat down with yourself and you had an honest conversation, because we have so many distractions in life. You can just go through your whole life and be on TV and on your phone and at school and this and that. You never sit down and honestly look at your life and what you're doing and how you're acting. So that is a good word, I think, to sit down and evaluate your life.
Yeah, because when the conviction came, I had nothing to hide behind. I couldn't hide behind, but I go to church on Sundays, or I pray, or I had nothing to hide behind, Yeah.
Man, so that is a transformational moment take us through a little bit, then kind of what transpired in your life after that to, bring you up to Minnesota and eventually becoming Pastor Brandon.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I just wanted to grow in my faith after that. I went back to college. I was praying on the way back there. I was like, Lord, I got these friends, Lord, and they're not believers. And they love to do the same things that I've always done. How am I going to do this? And long story short, man, one of the guys called me. He was like, hey, man, I got a list of things we going to do, parties we going to yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I can't do it no more, man. I'm going to say, he said, what? We all saved, man. What you mean? And I was like, no, man, I'm saved. He's like, what, you gonna become a rabbi or something? I was like, no, man. And so we talked about it a little bit. He's like, all right, cool. And he just kind of kept trying me. He's like, hey, man, we're gonna go out party, man. You trying to come? I was like, nah, man, nah. Then we're gonna go do this. You trying to come? I was like, nah, man, I'm good, man. I'll stay back and I'll study the word or whatever. And man, I was praying for these dudes. And sure enough, man, that same dude, God turned him into a believer, man. He became a believer. I was sharing the gospel with him and he became a believer. And then another dude came and he became a believer. And another dude came. So the core group that I had around me, Lord used me to turn all these dudes into believers. They became Christian. These are my closest friends to this day, to this very day. And so, man, God was gracious in that. But we stuck it out, and then we did campus ministry stuff together after that. Bible studies, just trying to grow. And Lord, we joined church, just committed ourselves to that, and came up here to Minnesota. All of us came here. We went to seminary at Bethel Seminary, and we were up there, and God just kind of worked with us through us and in us there. I was a youth pastor over on the north side. That time just really trying to grow and do work for the Lord, and all that happened, and eventually, man, I just went through this place where I just needed to be discipled. In all of that time, I had never been discipled. There was never a person really to show me how to walk out life in Christ, And so I was sort of unstable in some ways. I was faithful, but I was unstable in a lot of ways, and so the Lord brought me to the church I'm at now, City View Church. That was almost 9 years ago, bro. And brought me there, and the pastor there, him and I started linking up, and he started discipling me. And that was, it was a slow process, but that was the change that I needed. It just kind of really helped me walk this whole thing out. From that point on, man, God had been working specifically towards this end. The pastor, he was always telling me, man, you're a pastor. You're a pastor. You're gonna be a pastor. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm a pastor in some ways, but not like what you're talking about. No, I'm not. And eventually, man, it just happened to. I would say, just it came to a point where I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And it was during the whole the death of George Floyd. We had the riots, and then the pandemic all hit all at the same time, and everything was shut down. Everything was shut down, and I remember texting him. I was like, man, we can't just be sitting in our homes while the city's on fire. There's a pandemic around the world. We got to do something. And he was like, right. He called all the men of the church together, and he said, men, it's time to be men, get out of your homes, come down here. So we set up a grill, and while the riots are going on, and the National Guard was in the city, we set up these grills. We flamed up a bunch of burgers and hot dogs and stuff, and just started giving them out to people, going out, sharing the gospel on the streets with people. Hey, there goes the cops. Hey, y'all want a burger? Volunteers coming through to clean up the city, giving them all burgers, how to bring people to the side, sharing the gospel. We had all kind of donations that came in, and we started giving out stuff to the people in the neighborhood, people that needed stuff. And in this, he was like, hey, why don't you come alongside with me, man? Just work with me and help me. And he kind of pulled me in with the help. I was like, yeah, I'll help you, man. I'll help you. And so I did that just for a little bit of time. And then eventually he said, hey, you preach a little bit. I was like, yeah, I'll preach because I've preached before. I know, that's a gift I feel like God's given me. Sure, I'll preach. And then he eventually he said, man, I want you to be my associate pastor, assistant pastor. And at first I was like, nah. But I was like, you know what? God is calling me. And for whatever reason, then I felt very clear. God is calling me. I'm going to say yes. And so I did because I felt like God was calling me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll do that. Like a little part-time thing. Yeah, I'll do that. But man, God has gotten a hold of me. And this is where I'm supposed to be. And so it went from a little part-time thing to, hey, I know you're working at your school, and but I want you to switch. I want you to be a full-time pastor here. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I know this is what God has me. And so, and my love for the congregation has just grown. My love for the community has just grown because I see now that God has put me here. He's raised me up in this place. He's put me here to be a shepherd among this community of people.
And people don't know, when you talk about the George Floyd incident, that was like 3 blocks from your house. So it was like when you say like that hit close to home, literally and figuratively, like you were right there, and all the chaos is next to your house. I mean, did you feel like safe? Did you contemplate, are you gonna move? Or a lot of people moved out at that time.
Oh yeah, man. It was nuts, man. We had people, so they shut down. This is how it went, man. You hear constant helicopters above your house all the time because the news wants to hear about it. They want to know what's going on. So it's helicopters all day long. You got gunshot, bah, 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 bah. Just people upset, people are angry. So shooting in the air, shooting. I mean, I caught it on my doorbell. My neighbor caught it on his doorbell. There's a guy that just came down the street right in front of my house, pulled his gun out in the air, pop, 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 got back his car. Of course, we all woke up, jump up. So it's like that constant trauma, that constant like stress, on you. And it was just heavy, people were getting murdered at a much higher rate than had ever had been before. And so it was like, at least in that area of the city, we didn't have people getting murdered like that often, and so it was a very high stress situation. There was talk about KKK being here and Antifa and all this kind of stuff, people being here and just starting stuff up in our neighborhoods and starting stuff up in our city, and so even at the church, literally, I'm standing at the church. I could look over to the right. I could see the AutoZone was on fire. Then I could look over to the left. See, there's a fire in the middle of the street over here. Somebody just put it in the trash can and wanted to start a fire. Right? That's crazy. It felt like a war zone. Then the next day, you got the National Guard rolling down the street in tanks. So it was crazy. And I went down there. We were some of the first people there to pray the day after the George Floyd incident happened. We stood right there where he was killed and just praying. But man, it was wild because the more people started to pour in, people from the suburbs, people from other cities, started to pour in. It wasn't a lot of high stress. It was high pressure, and people, popping on firecrackers. You think the gunshots, very close to the house, all kind of stuff, man. And so it was some times where we felt like, hey, we need to get out of here, we need to get out of here. And we did, I took my wife and my kids and we went to some people at the church. They said, hey, you come out here and stay with us. And so we went out there for a little bit, just kind of stay out of all the trauma and stress. But I came back into the city. My wife was a little nervous about that. But I said, you stay here and I'm gonna go back into the city and I gotta serve these people. We gotta do something.
So transitioning a little bit, now you're a coach, you coach softball, which is funny.
Yeah.
But just say a little bit about kind of your coaching philosophy and kind of what's been happening around your program.
Yeah. A lot of my coaching philosophy comes from Dean Smith. If you don't know who Dean Smith is, he's late. He's passed on, but he was the head coach at North Carolina for a very long time. And if you know anything about North Carolina, you know there's a lot of good basketball players that come out of North Carolina. Vince Carter, everybody love the mean Doug Master, right? But there's one person in particular that everybody knows, and that's Michael Jordan. And Michael Jordan once said, somebody asked him if it came down to one game, and you had what's the biggest game, and you had one coach to choose, Phil Jackson, this is the guy he wore his rings up under, right? Or was it 6 of them, right? His 6 rings under him, or Dean Smith, who would you pick? And Michael Jordan said he would pick Dean Smith to coach him.
Dang.
So here's my thing, man. When I go back and I'll read and understand what Dean Smith is talking about, Dean Smith, and this is first I read an account from people who played for him. His philosophy was this: you play hard, you play smart, and you play together. In any of those things, you hear anything about winning? No. You can control playing hard. That's something you can control. You can control who plays smart. You gotta learn how to know. You gotta learn the game. And when you learn the game, then you can play smart. Then you can control playing together, playing teamwork. Right? He doesn't talk about winning. John Wooden doesn't talk about winning. Like these great coaches, they don't talk about winning. They talk about self-mastery. They talk about teamwork. They talk about controlling the things that you can control. So you better believe when I started reading these guys, it started speaking to who I was, who started focusing on all the other things versus myself, and so when you start doing, when I started to look into what Dean Smith was saying and what the people about Dean Smith were saying, they said one thing we knew about Dean Smith is Dean Smith loved us. He was a friend to us. He was like a father to us. He cared about us beyond basketball. And so that's something I wanted to adopt. That's what I do. I tell my girls, hey, I love y'all. As a team, I love y'all. Don't worry about if you mess up, if you make a mistake. I will be upset if you don't try because you're not pushing yourself to the potential that you can do. Right? But if you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Don't worry, you're secure over here. Regardless, you're secure. So I want to make sure that they know that. My philosophy, man, is the reps. You get more reps. The more reps you get, the better you get. The better you get. We call these our beliefs. And our girl, they know this, right? They should know this, I should say. I tell them the more reps you get, the better you get. The better you get, the better the team gets. And that's it all comes down to the reps. And the reps can be in the form of watching video, studying video, learning how to take score. Getting the actual reps in. How many swings have you got? Are you swinging well? Are the fundamentals there? Are you in a perfect fielding position? Those types of things. Yesterday, just for example, I had a girl at second base. I was hitting the ball to her, and I've been telling her all year. She's kind of like clamping, trying to shut the ball like this. And I've been telling her all year, you can't do that. You can't do that. You need to get that glove behind alligator. PFP. We call it PFP, perfect fielding position. And I was hitting to her, and it kept going into her legs because she wasn't doing what I was telling her. She wasn't doing the fundamental things. I said, hey, go get off. I pulled it off and put another girl in. And I told her, you go over on the side and you work on doing it the right way. Send another girl over there and do it. She did it for a while. She came back, man. I was hitting to her, boom, perfectly, feeling it, perfect. I mean, and at the end of the practice, this is just yesterday. I do shout outs at the end. Hey, shout out to somebody. And somebody shouted her out. Somebody said, she went out, coach pulled her out. She went over there and got some reps in. She came back with a vengeance. This is what this girl said. She came back with a vengeance. And she did. I believe that if you put the reps in, put the work in, you will get better. And when you get better, the team gets better. And when the team get better, then we can compete. The wins will take care of themselves. But it's the process we have to learn to love.
Yeah. Man, as a coach, I would even say way better than winning is seeing something like that you've coached and it comes to life. Seeing your player improve is better than winning. And hopefully winning becomes a byproduct.
Oh, yeah.
But like you said, when you make that your focus, you lose.
Well, you lose so much. You lose not just like the game, and you actually may win a lot of games if that's your focus. But what happens if your focus is on winning and not self mastery, about competing with yourself? What happens when you win? You're on top of the world.
Yeah.
Yes, I am somebody. What happens when you lose? You're a nobody now. You get crushed by losses.
Mm,
You see what I'm saying?
yeah.
Versus I focus on myself. Win or lose, I'm going to compete with myself to get better and put my reps up against somebody else's reps, right? And see who comes out on top. And then when I lose, I can step back clearly without feeling crushed, without having this emotional dilemma. I can step back and say, why did I lose? Okay, we lost by a run. I'm going to remember it. And I also dropped that fly ball.
Mm,
I need to work on that fly ball.
mm,
We lost by a run. And you know what? That ball went through my legs and they got an extra base. I got to work on my fielding. Right? I'm not crushed by this loss, but I can reflect on what I've done and the things that I need to improve on in order for me to get better. So when I get better, then my team gets better. I can't win the game by myself.
right. That's good. I think that's a good transition to what I always ask is, of the many lessons, if you can take one lesson you've learned in sports that has impacted your life beyond sports, what would that be?
Yeah, I would just go back to what I was just saying, so part of our beliefs is, one of them is that anyone and everyone can improve. Anyone and everyone can improve. So I can improve. I can get better at what I'm doing. The more reps I do, the more I do it, the better I'll get at it. And the better I get at it, the better those who are around me, who are dependent upon me for that. So my thing is, if I take a step back and I think about even my senior year that I missed out on in wrestling, like if I would have believed that anybody and everybody can get better, including me, and all I had to do was step back and put those reps in and not think about other people and what they thought about me, but just focus on me, improving myself, and then I would get better and my team would get better because of that. I feel like if I would have known those types of things, it's about the mental. I've learned that my mind is way more influential on my performances and anything I do than my body. My mind will give out way faster than my body will. We've seen people push themselves just crazy ways that people push themselves to be the best in the world. But the thing that separates people is the mind.
That's good. Well, you're on the Dear Young Athlete podcast, so we will need you to complete the statement. Dear Young Athlete blank, what do you want to say to your players, to a younger Brandon?
Yeah. Dear young athlete, do not quit. Don't quit. It's as simple as saying, you don't know what your potential is. Push yourself and look into the future to see what you can be. You have to believe something before you're going to try it. If you don't believe that you're going to do it, you will try it.
That's good. That's good. I love it. And that's in sports, and that's in life. You may be scared to try wrestling your junior year, but try it. Like, you don't know what's going to be coming that. And you may be scared to go to college, right? But if you don't ever try, you may be scared to try that new job, or think about like getting married and having a family and owning a home. All these things, like, they may be scary to you, but you need to try and not give up and quit and just see what might be out there for you. Any last words for us?
No, man. I just appreciate you having me out here. on the Dear Young Athlete podcast. It was a gift. Yeah, man, I'm just happy to be here with you, man.
Hey, well, I appreciate you. And man, your story is so powerful. Like I said, anyone who would take the time to listen is going to be impacted in a positive way. Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Dear Young Athlete podcast. Make sure you check out our website linked in the description and find out how you could bring Dear Young Athlete to your team or your group. Check out our merchandise and use code all caps DYA20 and take 20% off your first order. Also, consider partnering with us on Patreon. You'll get regular discounts, you'll get exclusive content, and you'll be supporting a great movement. Wherever you're listening, make sure you follow and leave us a review. It really helps the algorithm and helps this podcast reach more people. Thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.